Coach knows I'm the champion of the little guy. I've been beating the drum all year for the Cincinnatis and the BYUs and the Coastals. Greg, get the conversation started here. How fair is the process to the group of 5 teams?
It's fair to a certain extent because if everyone played the schedule that, say, Cincinnati played, then there'd probably be a decent amount of teams that probably would go undefeated. So it's fair. Yes, the deck is stacked against them, and it's almost an uphill battle. It's almost an impossible battle, frankly, for them to get into the college football playoff without there being some type of chaos amongst the Power 5 league champions. That's really what it comes down to. It's fair because it does protect those that do play a very difficult schedule. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give the benefit of the doubt to the teams that can't control who's on that schedule. And I think that's the one thing that we need to evaluate and assess is that we need to give these teams more opportunities to compete against the top. For instance, Cincinnati last year, and I don't like to go back to this game because I know it's a new year, they had a chance to play against Ohio State. We need more of those games where they get to play against contenders, and that's how we'll get a better feel as to whether or not they can truly contend in a playoff atmosphere.
Well, and you made a point earlier that you felt that Cincinnati would be undefeated playing Ohio State's schedule, and that's a very strong statement. The incentive for the top teams, though, to play a team like Cincinnati, a top Power 5 or
right, Power 5.
Power 5 school
championship
is not there.
Right.
Because there's just too much to lose. Obviously, the incentive for Cincinnati to go play Ohio State, not only monetarily, but from the chance to get respect is there, but vice versa, it just doesn't make sense. It's a conundrum. I don't know how we get out of it.
Here's the other thing, too, that just frustrated me about this year is that it wasn't about what you accomplished on the field. It wasn't. We can say it was. Then why was there a 10-spot gap between Ohio State at 4 and USC at 14? At one point. Now, I know USC has since lost, and it's all worked itself out. Why is there a 5-spot gap going into Championship Saturday between an undefeated Cincinnati and an Ohio State team that played 5 games? 5-spot gap. I'm not suggesting that Cincinnati needs to be ahead of Ohio State. But what I do know is what the committee gave us this year is that it basically told us, well, we know Ohio State's good because last year they were close and they've recruited really well. Basically, Ohio State, don't screw it up, and you're going to get in. That's not the way it should be. We should reward teams for what they've actually accomplished on the field, not for who we think they are. And that is where the committee, I think, fell short this year, even though for them, they lucked out, and it became pretty clear-cut who those 4 teams needed to be at season's end.
And that to me, is the rub, right? We predetermine before we ever even play a snap of football who the best teams are, and to your point, they've got to play their way out. And, Rod, if you're Cincinnati, and you know what? Their athletic director has said all the right things, John Cunningham. He said all the right things there. But there's got to be a lot of bitterness there for a team that went undefeated, won its conference championship in probably the next best conference outside the Power 5, and they're behind multiple schools with multiple losses.
Look, this system isn't fair, and it's not going to change. The group of 5, they don't have any leverage to force a change. This year was a really bad omen for the group of 5. You had Cincinnati. This is not a Boise State. It's not UCF. This is not a newly rich, on-the-scene kind of program. This is a program well-respected by the coaches around the country. Heck, a lot of them coached there over time. You think about guys like Butch Jones and others who coached there. They know this program. They know what they have and where they are. And they said no. In a season where you didn't have non-conference games, where you got to match up and see who went out and played, you didn't have that. This is how good and dominant are you in your conference. It is never going to happen for the group of 5. They do not have the leverage to make it change. It's one of those, thank you, sir, may I please have another? Because you really can't force the change. And it's really too bad. It's really too bad. This is a year Cincinnati should have been in. Lugs?
Yeah, you know, Rod, if there was in a year, it would have been this year. But I think the one thing, too, that we've got to acknowledge is there's a reason why there is different levels of football. The Power 5, the Group of 5, the FCS, Division II, so on and so forth, because there's different levels of football players. And when we say that and we watch these teams and the product they put on the field, the question the committee is always going to ask, and it's reflective in their rankings this year, just like it always has been, is if you took the Cincinnati and you had them play in the Big 12, you had them play in the SEC, or you had them play in the ACC, would they be an undefeated team? That's the question they're all asking themselves in that room. And I think that the answer, by and large, is no. And that's what also holds the Group of 5 team back. And is that unfortunate? Yes. Is that the reality of the world we're living in? Absolutely.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.